Okay guys, what we're going to talk about today is black powder rifles. After the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, settlers started being able to move into Alabama, and with them they brought firearms for two reasons. And can y'all tell me what the two reasons are? And of course one of them is for protection against robbers and bad people, and the other one is for hunting and capturing game and that kind of thing. For us to have firearms, or for them to have firearms during that period, much sooner things were discovered that make firearms possible. One, of course, they had the metal, and two, the discovery of black powder by the Chinese as early as the 9th century AD, and it was brought to the Europeans in about 1292. But anyway, black powder is a mixture of three ingredients that most people know at least one of the ingredients of black powder because they use it oftentimes on their patio decks or porch to cook with, and of course that's charcoal. Black powder is 10% charcoal, 85% potassium nitrate, which is mined, and during the Civil War it was mined in the Soto Caverns near Sylacauga. And so, and the other ingredient being sulfur, which lowers the flame temperature or ignition temperature of the mixture. The other thing you have to make a firearm useful or effective is you've got to have a projectile. And back then, everyone used round balls. And round balls are made of lead, and it's a good bullet because it's heavy and it's dense, so it likes to penetrate. And lead starts out being in ingots of one form or another that's melted, put into molds where it solidifies in about 10 seconds. You open the mold and the round balls will drop out. If you're doing everything right, they'll drop out, and it'll be pretty uniform in a pretty good projectile, even though it's a round ball. It's still very effective. 25 to 100 yards, it's very effective. There were several other types of early black powder firearms like the wheel lock and the matchlock, and they were either too sophisticated to be practical or not reliable enough. And the flintlock came along, and the mechanism is so simple that it was reliable, and it's what took over the early muzzle loading type rifles was the flintlock system. But anyway, the flintlock was what became the most popular firearm just about everywhere for hunting and for rifling. And the reason is it just utilizes flint, the stone flint, and they knew that when the flint struck the metal, it would create a spark, and that spark would ignite the powder in the pan, which would ignite the main powder charge in the breech of the rifle. And so it worked great. What I want to do now is show you how to load one. And like I said, everything is done from the muzzle. So we point the gun up and we measure a amount of black powder to put in here. And this may seem slow to you, and it is, but you put the powder in. Be sure you got it all in there. That was about 100 grains. And then we find a patch put the patch on it, put a round ball in it, press it down in there. Sometimes it's hard and you use a starter one like this, but I keep these clean, so you tap it down in there. It needs to, the charge and the ball need to fit tightly on the powder, otherwise it won't go off. So the flintlock is loaded. It only needs one more item, which I'm not going to put in there right this second, but it's a real fine black powder, and you put it in the pan of the flintlock, and then when the flint strikes the frizzen, it makes a spark and starts the fine black powder, so it'll light the main charge. But I'm gonna hold off on that for a few minutes. Later on, in 1823, Colt came up with what's called a percussion cap. And I don't know what possessed them to do it, but they decided that it would be better to make guns that were percussion cap operated rather than flintlock. And it is a simpler mechanism as long as you keep the little channels that channel the spark from the percussion cap down to the main powder charge. So it was, by the Civil War, it had just about taken over all of the firearms, and there were a few flintlocks, but percussion cap just about took over all of them. And again, it's a muzzle loader, so you do everything from the muzzle. So I go back to get my measuring cup, my measuring tool, put me about 100 grains of black powder in there. Now we've put the powder down this barrel here, so we'll get another patch. And the patch has two purposes. One to keep the ball from rolling out the barrel, and one to make it shoot straighter. You see why the little kits are so much better than doing it this way, unless you're just demonstrating like we are. So this one is ready for the percussion cap, and then we'll fire it. This is some fine black powders I showed you earlier, and we're putting it in the pan of the firearm, and this will be what ignites the main charge when the spark goes off. Now, this rifle's ready to fire except for the percussion cap that I'm putting on the nipple now. It's ready to fire. One of the things that makes a black powder rifle a little bit more difficult than cleaning modern firearms is the amount of fouling or gunpowder residue that's left in the barrel. So I'm removing the fouling, which is easy to see. Of course, I hadn't fired many times in these rifles, so they're not foul terribly bad. But after 3 or 4 shots, you would have to clean it. Otherwise, you wouldn't get bullet down the bore to the powder charge. That's good enough right there. That'll be good to the next time I shoot it.